Hugh Miller has told how, by an act of youthful decision, he saved himself from one of the strong temptations so peculiar to a life of toil. When employed as a mason, it was usual for his fellow workmen to have an occasional treat of drink, and one day 2 glasses of whiskey fell to his share, which he swallowed. When he reached home, he found, on opening his favorite book, Bacon's Essays, that the letters danced before his eyes, and that he could no longer master the sense. The condition, he says, into which I had brought myself was, I felt, one of degradation. I had sunk, by my own act, for the time, to a lower level of intelligence than that on which it was my privilege to be placed. And though the state could have been no very favorable one for forming a resolution, I in that hour determined that I should never again sacrifice my capacity of intellectual enjoyment to a drinking usage. And, with God's help, I was enabled to hold by the determination. It is such decisions as this that often form the turning points in a man's life, and furnish the foundation of his future character. And this rock, on which Hugh Miller might have been wrecked, if he had not at the right moment put forth his moral strength to strike away from it, is one that youth and manhood alike need to be constantly on their guard against. It is about one of the worst and most deadly, as well as extravagant, temptations which lie in the way of youth. Sir Walter Scott used to say that of all vices drinking is the most incompatible with greatness. Not only so, but it is incompatible with economy, decency, health, and honest living. When a youth cannot restrain, he must abstain. Dr. Johnson's case is the case of many. He said, referring to his own habits, "Sir, I can abstain, but I can't be moderate." But to wrestle vigorously and successfully with any vicious habit, we must not merely be satisfied with contending on the low ground of worldly prudence, though that is of use, but take stand upon a higher moral elevation. Mechanical aids, such as pledges, may be of service to some, but the great thing is to set up a high standard of thinking and acting, and endeavor to strengthen and purify the principles as well as to reform the habits. For this purpose a youth must study himself, watch his steps, and compare his thoughts and acts with his rule. The more knowledge of himself he gains, the more humble will he be, and perhaps the less confident in his own strength. But the discipline will be always found most valuable which is acquired by resisting small present gratifications to secure a perspective greater and higher one. It is the noblest work in self-education. For real glory springs from the silent conquest of ourselves, and without that the conqueror is naught but the first slave. Many popular books have been written for the purpose of communicating to the public the grand secret of making money. But there is no secret whatever about it, as the proverbs of every nation abundantly testify. Take care of the pennies and the pounds will take care of themselves. Diligence is the mother of good luck. No pains no gains. No sweat no sweet. Work and thou shalt have. The world is his who has patience and industry. Better go to bed superless than rise in debt. Such are specimens of the proverbial philosophy, embodying the hoarded experience of many generations, as to the best means of thriving in the world. They were current in people's mouths long before books were invented. And like other popular proverbs they were the first codes of popular morals. Moreover they have stood the test of time, and the experience of every day still bears witness to their accuracy, force, and soundness. The Proverbs of Solomon are full of wisdom as to the force of industry, and the use and abuse of money. He that is slothful in work is brother to him that is a great waster. Go to the ant, thou sluggard. Consider her ways, and be wise. Poverty, says the preacher, shall come upon the idler, as one that travaileth, and want as an armed man. But of the industrious and upright, the hand of the diligent maketh rich. The drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe the man with rags. Seest thou a man diligent in his business? He shall stand before kings. But above all, it is better to get wisdom than gold. For wisdom is better than rubies, and all the things that may be desired are not to be compared to it. Simple industry and thrift will go far towards making any person of ordinary working faculty comparatively independent in his means. Even a working man may be so, provided he will carefully husband his resources, and watch the little outlets of useless expenditure. A penny is a very small matter, yet the comfort of thousands of families depends upon the proper spending and saving of pennies. If a man allows the little pennies, the results of his hard work, to slip out of his fingers, some to the beer shop, some this way and some that, he will find that his life is little raised above one of mere animal drudgery. On the other hand, if he take care of the pennies, putting some weekly into a benefit society or an insurance fund, others into a savings bank, and confiding the rest to his wife to be carefully laid out, with a view to the comfortable maintenance and education of his family, he will soon find that this attention to small matters will abundantly repay him, in increasing means, growing comfort at home, and a mind comparatively free from fears as to the future. And if a working man have high ambition and possess richness in spirit, a kind of wealth which far transcends all mere worldly possessions, he may not only help himself, but be a profitable helper of others in his path through life. That this is no impossible thing even for a common laborer in a workshop, may be illustrated by the remarkable career of Thomas Wright of Manchester, who not only attempted but succeeded in the reclamation of many criminals while working for weekly wages in a foundry. Accident first directed Thomas Wright's attention to the difficulty encountered by liberated convicts in returning to habits of honest industry. His mind was shortly possessed by the subject, and to remedy the evil became the purpose of his life. Though he worked from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, still there were leisure minutes that he could call his own, more especially his Sundays, and these he employed in the service of convicted criminals, a class then far more neglected than they are now. But a few minutes a day, well employed, can effect a great deal, and it will scarcely be credited that in 10 years this working man, by steadfastly holding to his purpose, succeeded in rescuing not fewer than 300 felons from continuance in the life of Villani. He came to be regarded as the moral physician of the Manchester Old Bailey. And where the chaplain and all others failed, Thomas Wright often succeeded. Children he thus restored reformed to their parents. Sons and daughters otherwise lost, to their homes. And many a returned convict did he contrive to settle down to honest and industrious pursuits. The task was by no means easy. It required money, time, energy, prudence, and above all, character, and the confidence which character invariably inspires. The most remarkable circumstance was that Wright relieved many of these poor outcasts out of the comparatively small wages earned by him at foundry work. He did all this on an income which did not average, during his working career, 100 per annum. And yet, while he was able to bestow substantial aid on criminals, to whom he owed no more than the service of kindness which every human being owes to another, he also maintained his family in comfort, and was, by frugality and carefulness, enabled to lay by a store of savings against his approaching old age. Every week he apportioned his income with deliberate care. So much for the indispensable necessaries of food and clothing, so much for the landlord, so much for the schoolmaster, so much for the poor and needy. And the lines of distribution were resolutely observed. By such means did this humble workman pursue his great work, with the results we have so briefly described. Indeed, his career affords one of the most remarkable and striking illustrations of the force of purpose in a man, of the might of small means carefully and sedulously applied, and, above all, of the power which an energetic and upright character invariably exercises upon the lives and conduct of others. There is no discredit, but honor, in every right walk of industry, whether it be in tilling the ground, making tools, weaving fabrics, or selling the products behind a counter. A youth may handle a yardstick, or measure a piece of ribbon. And there will be no discredit in doing so, unless he allows his mind to have no higher range than the stick and ribbon. to be as short as the one, and as narrow as the other. Let not those blush who have, said Fuller, but those who have not a lawful calling. And Bishop Hall said, sweet is the destiny of all trades, whether of the brow or of the mind. Men who have raised themselves from a humble calling, need not be ashamed, but rather ought to be proud of the difficulties they have surmounted. An American president, when asked what was his coat of arms, remembering that he had been a hewer of wood in his youth, replied, a pair of shirt sleeves. A French doctor once taunted Flecaire, Bishop of Nismes, who had been a tallow chandler in his youth, with the meanness of his origin, to which Flecaire replied, if you had been born in the same condition that I was, you would still have been but a maker of candles.